Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. And for those of you who are here for the first time, I'm Roy. I'm a startup investor in the future of work. We are very fortunate to be investors at Bloomberg Beta in Tiffany's company, The Cru. And Tiffany, we've done this before, and so just really appreciate your perspective. And Tiffany, in addition to being the founder of The Cru, which builds communities of women who are trying to achieve personal and professional goals. She's also a published author. So wrote the book Drop the Ball, which is relevant to our question today. So the question we have today is, how do I create boundaries while still succeeding at work, continuing to climb the ladder? So would love any and all perspective on that. And thank you, Tiffany.
Completely. Thank you, Roy. It's so good to talk to you, and it's so good to be in Bloomberg Beta's portfolio. I have to give you street cred as one of the first firms to invest in The Cru, and just seeing us grow, and your partnership has been incredible.
Well, I want to give credit there. Actually, it was our friend Peter Rojas, who I think was the one who originally encouraged us. So let's give credit to the whole chain where it's due. Anyway, okay. How do people take care of themselves, draw the boundaries we've been hearing about, and still succeed? Don't they have to lean in? Like, haven't we heard hustle, 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 all that stuff?
Yes, you can lean in, but you were never meant to lean in alone. And this is very, very important. One of the most important things that we've got to do in setting boundaries is realize that in all of the roles that we play, we have expectations of ourselves and other people have expectations of us. And one of the most important things that you can do is level set with all of your stakeholders, whether it's your boss, whether it's your investors, whether it is your partner, whether it's your kids, with what is it that you need from me at this specific moment in time. And it doesn't have to be forever. It could be the next 6 months. It could be for the rest of this year. It could be for over the next year. What do you feel you need me to do that would make you feel like I was being an extraordinary partner, an extraordinary manager, an extraordinary parent? And the reason why it's important to level set with our stakeholders is because often their expectations of us are lower than the expectations that we have of ourselves, especially if you're one of those A-type personalities that is very ambitious and wants to climb. So I encourage intentional conversations that are specifically about, I really want to hit Q3 out of the ballpark. I really want to be an extraordinary mom. I really want to ensure that I give you the return on your investment. Here's what I'm focused on. What do you think? And doing that on a consistent basis.
What I hear you saying is, know what boundaries you want to draw, and then the other side of the equation being know what the performance expectations are of you so that you can wildly exceed those expectations. And I'm hearing you right?
Yes, and don't assume the expectation. That's the piece there, is that usually we just assume the expectation, and it's usually an expectation that is humanly impossible if you actually take into consideration the fact that we only have 24 hours in a day, and then we spend most of our time beating ourselves up because we can't meet this impossible expectation.
Yeah, I think so. I totally buy that. And one thing I've found that is difficult for people in setting some of those initial boundaries is that in the first moment of doing it, you'll often get dissatisfaction from the person on the other side, right? They wish you didn't have that boundary, right? They wish you might work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week or something like that. Not everybody, but some people, or at least psychologically, it'll be like a little bit of a bump. And I love the idea of twinning it with making sure you're understanding what over delivery looks like relative to expectation, because I think that could soften that bump in the relationship. And in the end of the day, a little dissatisfaction from your boss is fine so long as you outperform. Like, your goal is not for your boss to be happy all the time. Your goal is to do whatever it is, and not just bosses, clients, whoever it is. The other question that I wonder on this is, I think in an ideal world, you could go to one of your stakeholders and say, what does it look like for me to excel? I find that in many work cultures, the person on the other end is just not used to that and maybe ill prepared to answer it. And so, and especially, by the way, as you become more senior, and it's like kind of awkward if you're like selling a multi-million-dollar contract to be like, so tell me what your expectations are. You know, it's like a little too paint by numbers. And so you're sort of expected to just know. What do you do if the answer is not explicitly available to you?
Well, I think if you suspect that it might not be, or you just don't know, then you're going to give them more content to deal with, right? So you're going to start with what you know to be true, which is what is keeping that person up at night.
Yeah,
I know boss, Steve, Mary, whatever the person's name is, that our Q3 goal is probably weighing on you. And I want you to know that I'm here to make sure that we hit it out of the ballpark. One of the
yeah,
observations I've made is that I'm able to do that more effectively when I'm front facing with the client. One of the other observations I've made is I'm spending a lot of my time on our back end CRM system. So I'm wondering if you're open to a conversation about how I reprioritize my time to ensure that
yeah.
I'm spending multiple time front facing, and maybe there's a leadership opportunity for somebody else on the team. Are you open to that conversation? So that in that way, you're not just bringing them, what are your expectations of me? You can also bring them some self awareness. You can bring them clarity that
I
you
love
know
that.
what's important and what's at stake, and you can start bringing them a solution. And
Yep.
usually, a manager or a boss appreciates that.
Yeah, I think that what I hear you saying there is that there's really a trial and error process where you are, instead of receiving the answer explicitly, you're just trying out an answer based on your best guess and seeing where it goes. And I just love that. And I just want to say, I firmly believe that not only, and this is something I really learned from my wife, that not only is it possible to succeed professionally while drawing boundaries, it might be essential and everybody does it. It's just that people do it in different ways that are visible and invisible. And so I just want to put in a plug that if people want to get your book, this is a URL where they can get the book. I should have sent it to Bookshop, but this one does go to Amazon. I prefer Bookshop, but so it goes. Anything else you want to add, Tiffany, before we wrap?
Oh, the other thing that I just want to say is that we forget that as leaders, and whatever role you're in an organization, you're a leader, that
Or
people
something.
need models. People need models. So as you set boundaries, as you let people know what you can and can't do, and as you get clear about these expectations, know that you're modeling the behavior for your team, you're modeling that behavior for your colleagues. And I have to say that as many times a day as I set boundaries and say no, you want to know the most popular response I get is, wow, I didn't know we could do that. So, you never know how you setting those boundaries is unlocking an opportunity for somebody
For
else to
somebody else.
really
No, I love
thrive.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, that makes me remember this time when my boss asked me to do a meeting at like 11 o'clock the next day. And I said, no. And told my admin to say no. And he at the time was like, no, like your boss wants to meet. I'm like, yeah, but it's not like he gets to like command my body to show up wherever he wants. Like, I can't meet then. I have a client meeting. I have a more important thing. And then you could see like him being like, oh, that's like the possibility space just opened up.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you, Tiffany. And for those of you who are here with us for the first time, the reason we say it's not advice is we're not telling you how to live your life. We're just sharing our own experiences. You can get Tiffany's book and read more about hers. And if you want to find past write-ups on questions we've got all of them in this online book at thisisnotadvice.work. And if you have other questions, you can ask us. And Tiffany, I just love getting a chance to get little glimpses of your wisdom. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
You